Do you feel like your heart and mind are split in two and can't work together? A person's worst battle is between what they know and what they feel. We all have inner conflicts. It's a psychological struggle within one's mind, often consisting of constant debating of their emotions, beliefs, desires, and morals. But what exactly does that mean for you and I? It can be a simple choice in our normal day, whether we can't pick what we want to eat or what we want to wear, or it can be a lifelong decision that will base the rest of your lives. Whichever it may be, most importantly, it's a you versus you concept, meaning that you struggle from within and fight your own mind. That is an internal conflict. One may also be faced with a conflict of choosing between two paths in which both are equally as important. So these internal conflicts strengthen an individual and can be viewed through a psychoanalytical lens, through social and personal connections, through Charlotte Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper and George Orwell's 1984. Taking the Freudian approach of the psychoanalytical lens calls for a deeper look at the unconscious mind. So this is our reservoir of feelings, thoughts, emotions, urges, and memories that lie beyond our consciousness. Additionally, the preconscious mind are ordinary memories and hold an individual's dreams. However, these influences of the dreams and the experiences lie in our unconscious mind that's not directly knowable. Freud called dreams the royal road to the unconscious. Oftentimes, an insight into a character's dream can reveal a lot about what they're hiding in their inner battles. Now, I want you guys to think of a dream you had. Now, think about what you saw and how it relates to how you're feeling. So, dreams are a place where a character's inner demons are released, and it can be seen as a battle between the id, superego, and ego. Like the id part of the mind has trouble looking out for anyone other than themselves. So this is demonstrated in William Shakespeare's King Lear, as he is unable to look past his own desires and appreciate his daughter Cordelia. He is so influenced by his id that he's willing to divide his kingdom blindly and rely solely on flattery. Correspondingly, the id represents chaos, so Lear is a perfect example of how he's willing to divide his kingdom blindly, which will inevitably lead to war and chaos. On the other hand, the superego part of our mind is the exact opposite. This person is constantly looking out for others around them and puts everyone else above themselves. However, the constant need to please others may cause a person to feel like no one is looking out for them. Thus, the superego part may start to be overshadowed by the id, and then the battle begins. There is a continuous fight of one's primitive desires to keep others content, but the inner part of themselves wants to give in to their desires. This constant battle can be resolved, or rather reduced, by a part of the mind known as the ego. So the ego is responsible for controlling its impulses and releasing them in a healthy way. So although it's not easy to have a balance of id and superego, this is one way a person may be able to lower their inner conflict and maintain equilibrium. So thus, through a psychoanalytical lens, an internal conflict can be seen as a battle between a person's id, superego, and ego. Comparatively, inner conflicts are present in everyone's life and society. My personal biggest internal conflict is insecurity and the idea of self-acceptance. The idea comes from our capacity to like ourselves and being able to identify our strengths and weaknesses. Starting from a very young age, society's standard of what was deemed normal began circulating through media, including television, commercials, magazines, advertisements, etc. My insecurity didn't first start with myself, but rather social standards and what the definition of beauty was. That being said, what truly sparked it was my consciousness awareness of this difference between me and what I looked like and what was being portrayed to me in those magazines. I constantly felt like I didn't fit in and had a hard time accepting myself for who I am. One part of me looked in the mirror and was really happy with what I saw, but the other part of me creeped in and started telling me that I didn't fit the standards of society, essentially. This devil versus angel persona caused me to shelter myself, making me more of a reserved person. This battle manifested itself in me through a lack of confidence and self-acceptance. I felt if I didn't stand out from the crowd, I wouldn't be noticed. And that was my biggest struggle, to be accepted by society. Therefore, appealing to society and making efforts to be liked by society is something we all do, whether we would like to admit it or not. However, these difficulties in self-image and acceptance rise when this idea of being accepted by society is aggressive and becomes excessive. So, switching to a more social standpoint, internal conflicts are present in society as a whole. A lot of the times, internal conflicts can relate to deciding between two things a person has strong opinions about. The idea of human rights has been a contradictory and ongoing subject for many decades. Many people feel conflicted about the idea of human rights, including euthanasia. So, euthanasia is the voluntary, painless killing of a patient suffering from a terminal condition. In other words, it's known as assisted suicide. Well, shouldn't we be able to take pain away from someone if they ask for it? Well, this question still remains unanswered and differs from person to person. A person may be for the idea of human rights but against assisted suicide due to moral and religious values. So one may often go back and forth between the idea that a person has the right to do what they want with their body, but then their morals come in with that say that the body is sacred and that God shall decide when to end it. This internal conflict differs from person to person as does everyone's values. So this decision may seem easy right now. However, think about this. What if you were placed in a situation where your loved one was suffering daily with a terminal condition and you were given a choice to end this? Could you make that decision right now? This is now your battle of, should I do this? Would God be okay with this? But I want to end their suffering. What plays the biggest factor in this decision are the morals and the belief one was grown up with and that was enforced at a young age. So euthanasia may seem like a clear answer to some of you, but even though others want to get rid of someone's pain, at the back of their mind, they're still reminded of their religious beliefs hindering their choices, hence making this vicious discord never ending. So the Yellow Wallpaper is an interesting short story. The protagonist Jane demonstrates the concept of internal conflict exceptionally. While her husband John uses his title of a physician to undermine her sick condition, Jane is left trapped in the house alone. Her external conflict with her husband causes the internal conflict to manifest inside her as she is forbidden to leave her house and specifically write. John controls her by determining what he believes is best for her. This forces her to believe John and accept the idea that her thoughts, opinions, and judgments are false and they do not portray reality. So due to this, Jane internalizes these frustrations of John not accepting the authenticity of her sickness, and rather than discussing this openly with John, she represses her feelings and continues to develop throughout the story. She feels like she can't express her true, genuine self without being characterized as insane. As the story progresses, Jane degrades into insanity and adds, the faint figure behind seemed to shake the pattern just as if she wanted to get out. She proceeds to see a woman trapped behind bars trying to free. In other words, she envisioned herself as a woman battling her inner demons and trying to escape. Likewise, Jane is deteriorating from keeping her emotions and thoughts repressed and aspires to break free of this. She debates whether or not to disclose her true self in the form of writing, and questions, I don't know why I should write this. I don't want to. I don't feel able, and I know John would think it absurd. But I must say what I feel and think in some way. It is such a relief. It is evident that Jane is struggling to convey herself due to John's authority over her existence. She questions whether or not to write, and she ends up writing anyways. Thus, throughout the entire story, Jane's dilemma of writing expresses her battle with self-expression. Unfortunately, her writing in her diary wasn't enough to keep her from going insane. Similarly, in George Orwell's 1984, the protagonist, Winston, has an ongoing feud with himself. He is battling the internal conflict between suppressing his true thoughts or writing in his diary, which constitutes as a crime. This conflict is stimulated by this fear of getting caught for self-expression, also known as thought crime. This continuous surveillance in Oceania has only strengthened Winston's inner conflict, resulting in him being on high alert all the time. In the introduction of the book, Orwell claimed the thing he was about to do was open a diary. This was not illegal, but if detected, it was reasonably certain that it would be punishment by death. It is evident that Winston wishes to write in his diary, but the thought of getting caught keeps him from doing so. Eventually, Winston successfully finds a way to write in his diary without being seen by a telescreen. A telescreen is a large TV-like screen that is constantly displaying propaganda and having a surveillance on the party members. So although he continues to write in his diary, the fear of being vaporized remains inside him all the time. In extension to that, when he and Julia rent the room above Mr. Charrington's shop, it draws upon another worry. Orwell explained it was inconceivable that they could frequent this place for more than a few weeks without getting caught. The temptation of having a hiding place that was truly their own, indoors and near at hand, had been too much for both of them. Winston is now battling this conflict of whether he should leave the room due to the expected risk of getting caught, or if he should remain and spend this time with Julia, his love. He goes back and forth between the benefits and the risks, with the risks always floating his mind. Winston thought of this room as a sacred place where he could express himself without the dread of a telescreen constantly surveilling his every action. However, a part of him recognized that this wouldn't last eternally and that sooner or later they would get caught. So the task he did struggle with was deciding whether he should give up seeking to go against the party and experience life with Julia, or he should jeopardize this and eradicate the party with the aid of O'Brien. However, at the end of the novel, Winston still remained at the bottom of the Wheel of Fortune. After the horrors in Room 101, Winston finally breaks into complying with the party once more. Nevertheless, one cannot say whether Winston has resolved the conflict of self-expression, even though by the end he loved Big Brother. All in all, through the comprehensive analyzation of the psychoanalysis theory, internal conflicts are displayed throughout one's life that shapes them into who they are. These faults and internal struggles experienced by Winston in 1984 and Jane in the Yellow Wallpaper are what makes them authentic, affectionate, and more relatable characters.